So I'm setting up here for draping. And of course, you guys know that you would do what type of draping? That's right, double draping. So I just have to share this really quick. What's so creepy is I hear music. When I was playing this back, I heard music and TV in the background, but I was home by myself. So I have no clue where that music was coming from. I think my dad had left his TV on, but the music part, I wasn't playing any music. So maybe one day I'll open up a supernatural YouTube channel and share all of my experiences I've had with spirits and angels and demons and dreams that came true. But yeah, I just had to share that. That was so creepy. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we got her draped. We got her sectioned in 4. And right now I'm getting ready to put protective cream. It's simulated. Some people use Vaseline as protective cream, but usually color companies have their own color protectant, which is a little lighter than Vaseline, because the problem with that is if you get Vaseline on the actual hair, the color will not penetrate through that. So if she has gray hairs, they won't get covered. And I tried not to put the jar up close because I actually had it labeled simulated wax. So that's my multi-purpose simulated product. But I was using petroleum jelly as protective cream, and that's something you would use if you were at school practicing. Or gel or petroleum jelly. So I'm applying protective cream around her entire hairline. And back to the sections, it would be down the middle and ear to ear. And when I say ear to ear, I'm talking the high point of the back of the ear up across the apex to the back high point of the other ear. I sanitized my hands and then I would put my gloves on. Now, some people put protective cream on with the gloves, and actually at State Board you probably will be doing that. But in reality, if you're doing that, you're actually breaking down the protective barrier of your gloves. So technically you would have to change. So that's why I do it prior to. It's just an old habit. And yes, I was struggling with these gloves here. It's weird because I wear mediums, and different companies, the mediums are snug, and then other times they're loose. Large is actually too big for me, so yeah. Okay, so I would start in the front right section only because I'm right-handed, and so that's where I would start. If you're left-handed, you would start in the front left section. And when you're doing virgin tint to darken, you start in the front because hairs are, the most gray hairs are in the front, and also the hair is lighter in the front. So you would need more time for that part of the head to process. And that's why we start in the front when we're going darker. So I'm putting simulated chemical in the tint bowl, and you always want to have gloves on when you're touching your simulated chemicals. You never want to touch them with your bare hands. And so remember that even when you're at State Board, don't touch your chemicals without gloves, please. So I'm just kind of mixing up the simulated color and developer, which I'm using shaving cream. I showed you that. And I have my tint brush and my tint bowl, and I'm going to outline the perimeter of that section. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but I find it better to do this way because you're already getting some coating or color on those gray hairs and giving them a little bit more time to start processing. And it's okay because we're starting off on the scalp anyway when we do our application. So you just go around the entire perimeter of that section. Now, if I wasn't starting my application at the scalp first, like when you're going lighter, then I would not do this because we don't want hot roots. But going darker, you can do this. And I just was really struggling with this mannequin today and the tripod, and you guys know how it is. Every time I do a video, something's gonna happen. It's just insane. So my subsections are thin enough to read a text through. Always remember that. So when you do your subsection, put your phone up to it, and if you can read a text through that subsection, that means you have it thin enough. Number wise, it would be 1/8 of an inch, no thicker than 1/4 of an inch. And that's for thorough saturation for each subsection. You want to make sure that the color is going to travel all the way through that subsection and color the hair underneath. Now, some people color on both sides, and that's just a preference there. But I always used to teach that if your subsections were thin enough, that color should saturate through. And especially when you're just starting. So I'm showing you leave that last inch of hair out. But when you're just starting and your timing is not that great, I would not advise that you color both sides of the subsection, because now that means you have to color twice as fast. And that's with lightener, with perm, anything you're doing. If you're working on both sides of the strand, that means that it's processing on both sides. And if you're not quick enough, that hair could be over processed. So just do thin subsections, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch thick, or thin enough to read a text through. So my subsections, I apologize, I did not bring the camera around so you could see, but they're horizontal subsections in the front. So I'm just parting straight across. And please remember, guys, if you have any questions regarding any of the videos that I've done or that I'm doing, please feel free to ask. Okay, so now I'm going to, sorry guys, let's see what's going on here. So now I'm going to bring down my subsections now. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, now you could use your hands to bring that down if you wanted to. And now remember, I have not covered my ends yet. So usually the last inch of your hair is uncovered when you're doing a virgin tint to darken. The reason for that, if you just applied it all the way down, then your ends could end up darker than the rest of your hair. Now, if you wanted to, if you were in the salon realistically, you would use your tint brush to help bring your subsections back down. You want your subsections to be thin enough to read a text through. And honestly, I would have done this section, moved over to this section, done the same thing here, and then I moved to the back left and the back right. Now something I want to show you really quick before I do the last step, my strand test and combing through the ends, is I want to show you how you would subsection in the back. So up there in this corner here, I'm going to come in at an angle. And so when you section it, or subsection it, I mean, you would have a little triangle there. And you don't want it to be too thick, because remember, you want thorough saturation of the color. So let me bring the camera up here real quick. If you could see that. Your subsection is like this. So you have this little triangle here, and that would be brought over here once you apply it. And then you would subsection going across like this. And as you're going down the hair, it actually straightens itself out, right? So that's how you would subsection in the back. And the reason why I'm not going to, oh, I made a mess on my drape. The reason why I'm not going to go into the whole thing is just for time purposes. I don't want to hold you guys up too long. So now let's pretend I did the whole head, right? Started in the front right, went to the front left, came back to the back left, the back right. Now I'm going to come and I'm gonna take this piece here and I'm gonna do my strand test like we did in the last video. And I'm going to make sure I rinse the color off. Now, what are the benefits of doing a strand test? The benefit is if you're rushing doing color and you just go into rinsing it out, there's a chance the color didn't grab on at all. There's a chance that her grays are not covered. And so in that case, you're saving yourself the trouble, because there's nothing more upsetting than if I have grays and they're still showing, or my color didn't grab on. So let's say if you did a strand test and the color's not grabbing on, well, you can give it a little bit more time to sit on that hair to see if it's going to grab or not. And you know, you just let the client know, oh, it's not grabbing on yet, so we'll just wait about 10 more minutes, but we'll check it in 5, like that. Usually after colors nowadays, usually after about 45 minutes, they kind of stop working. So usually if you're doing 20 volume, remember we talked about this in my prior color videos, you should use 20 volume on gray hair. So usually with 20 volume in the color lines, I'm used to working with Redken, it's about 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes when you're doing this. So now after I've done my strand test, her hair looks good. The dark brown's taken really good. So now I'm going to take my rat tail comb and I'm going to comb through the ends. My subsections are still thin. And now let's say if the color was dried up, which with real color it's not, but let's just say it did. Then I would take my brush and apply. But remember, the reason why we're not applying in the first place is so her ends don't end up black. So you're kind of taking that color and blending it down from zones 2 through 3. Because your ends are porous, right? They're like little sponges. And so if you're doing a dark brown color, they're going to soak that up really quick, which is why you're doing the ends last. And my subsections are nice and straight. I see like how that's dry. Then I just would apply a little bit. And then any color that's on her skin, I'm gonna wipe that off. Most color lines have like a color remover. You could put that on some cotton balls. Push come to shove when you're in the shampoo bowl. You could take a little hair color, rub it on the skin, take a damp towel and wipe it off. Color actually removes color on the skin when you're working like that, but that's like if you didn't have any color remover. And then another tip is cuticle remover. So if you didn't have any color remover, you didn't have any more leftover color to work on the skin and then wipe it off, cuticle remover eats through that. Take a cotton ball and just wipe it all off. And that's it. So real quick, what I want to show you before I end this video, the 3 zones. So when I mention zones when we're doing hair color, you'll know what I'm talking about. So zone 1, let's get you a little closer. Zone 1 is the scalp hair, and it comes out a 1/2 inch. That's zone 1. Zone 2 starts at that 1/2 inch away from the scalp, all the way down the hair strand to that last inch of hair. And then zone 3 would be your porous ends, which is that last inch of hair. So what I just demonstrated is virgin tint to darken, and our first application was from the scalp all the way up to that last inch of hair. So what zones did I apply it to? That's right, I applied it to zones 1 and 2. I left zone 3 out. Now I went back and I did a strand test, and after my strand test, I took my comb and I combed it through the porous ends. What zone did I comb it through? Very good. I combed it through zone 3. And that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed class. God bless you, and I'll see you next time. Come here, you wild buck.